This video is a little different from my other Cypher videos because it's not about the official rules per se, but more how I like to handle something that the official rules also kind of cover. So let's just get into it and see what we can see. Crafting in Cypher can vary wildly depending on the setting or subsystems you're using. The core Cypher system handles it very simply, like almost every other task. The GM assigns a difficulty, maybe says how much time it'll take. The player then rolls, applies effort, applies skills, etc. Maybe the GM does an intrusion because he's an ass like that. And then bam, you've made stuff and things. And for many games, this is probably the best way to go about it. If your game is a superhero game or set in a fast-paced 80s movie-style action scenario, you don't really want to manage resources or do much planning for crafting items, or even just spend a lot of in-game downtime stuff. However, what if you do want these things? What if you're running a setting with more downtime, or where resources are part of the scenario, like in a post-apocalyptic game? Well, then you do want something a little bit more robust. Cypher does have examples of this, like the crafting system introduced in Numenera Discovery. The problem is my group, and many groups I've talked to, find the Numenera Discovery crafting system to be a little messy, and maybe with too many esoteric resources. I mean, I get where Monty Cook Games was going with this. Numenera is all about messing with things you can't possibly understand. 1 billion years of advanced super science in the hands of someone with basically the understanding of a medieval peasant. But it still just wasn't for my group. And it still sort of had the pitfalls of, spending a ton of time making something, in the case of Numenera, possibly taking years of in-game time, only for you to fail because of a bad roll? So for the scenarios where we want to craft things, I've created a slightly different type of crafting system for my particular group, and I thought, well hey, let's share it for everybody, and see if anyone else wants to use this as well. Now, keep in mind, this is still a work in progress, so if you have any suggestions on how you think you'd run this, or any changes you think would make this better, even for me, leave a comment below. I'd love to advance it and maybe tinker with it a bit more. Let's start with the resources for this crafting system, the materials. For most scenarios, I've stuck with 4 basic material types. Building, which is like lumber, metal supports, wiring, plumbing, and generally anything you need to make a structure or building of some kind. Electronic, circuit boards, computer chips, small wires, etc. Anything needed to make, repair, or modify electronic equipment. Mechanics, various parts needed to create, modify, or fix mechanical devices or vehicles. And finally, parts. Basically simple parts like screws, bolts, sockets, small brackets, wooden planks, scrap metal, etc. If it's a post-apocalyptic scenario, I probably would call this scrap instead of parts, but it's basically the same thing. These particular materials work well for the types of scenarios I usually run, which tend to be modern or sci-fi. If you're in a medieval setting, you might want other basic materials like stone, wood, metal, hide, etc. You can have more than 4 materials, but I find keeping it to only a handful of materials gives just enough variety to let them find some different types while not overwhelming them with too many things to keep track of. Also, you'll notice I'm very clear on what these materials are for. As neat as the resources in Numenera are, they're so alien and esoteric, my players just couldn't connect with them. They couldn't remember what they did or how good each one was compared to the other. Now we go on to the actual process of crafting, upgrading, and repairing. This is pretty easy, but there is one thing we need to know before we can start. Each item has a minimum level needed for that item to be functional, and a maximum level that that item can attain. We need to figure out what these are. For ciphers and artifacts, this is very easy. Each cipher and artifact already has a built-in random level, so you just need to find the minimum and maximum for that. For example, the detonation cipher has a level of 1d6 plus 2, so that's a minimum level of 3 and a maximum level of 8. For other items, the GM will just have to make a decision. For example, maybe the GM decides your car needs a minimum level of 5 to function and a maximum level of 8. Good, now we have those numbers, The rest is just following this chart, basically. Crafting only has a few steps, and is handled one item level at a time. Step 1, start at level 1. When crafting something, we start at level 1 for the type of object that we're making. If it's a normal item, it would be this line. If it was a cipher, it would be this line. And if it was an artifact, it would be this line. Let's follow along as if this was a detonation cipher. Step 2, time goes by. Then we spend time for that item as we work on creating it. Here's how much time it would be at level 1 for the detonation cipher. Step 3, the roll. This is where we actually roll an intellect task for the crafting of that step. You look at the difficulty of the level that you're at. You have the usual ×3 for the target number, and that's what you need to roll on the d20. As always, you can apply effort, skills, etc., just like you would any other task. If you are successful, you spend the amount of materials for that level. If you're unsuccessful, then you only spend half the materials to a minimum of 1. So in the case of the detonation cipher, the difficulty for the level 1 cipher is 2, and the materials you spend, whether you succeed or fail, is 1, because half of 1 is just going to be that minimum of 1. Step 4 is to either try this process again if you failed, or move on to the next level if you succeed. As you complete each level, make sure to level up that item to record your progress. Now, the item is not actually functional or usable until you reach its minimum level. So in the case of the detonation cipher, which has a minimum level of 3, you would have to complete levels 1, 2, and 3 before it's functional. Once you've completed this minimum level, the item is considered crafted and can be used. But what if you want the item to be higher level? There's nothing stopping you from continuing the process and upgrading the item at hand. The benefits of this is that you can upgrade virtually any item you get in the game by using this chart. Found a really good artifact, but rolled terribly? Upgrade it, make it better. There are a couple of benefits this way as well. It's not an all or nothing roll. If you fail one roll, that's fine. It just means you didn't make that level. You don't have to spend the entire crafting time all over again just to try again. Also, this means you can make a basic functioning item and then slowly work on upgrading it while still possibly actively using it. Yay, you made that level 5 car out of the spare parts you found in the garage in the middle of the post-apocalyptic wasteland. Although you want it at level 8, at least this way you can still use the car in between upgrade attempts, so it's not just materials sitting there and doing nothing. What about repairing an item? Well, the way I run this is I append a damaged tag to the item. I just write that it's damaged. I then write down what level it was at, and then I lower its current level down by however much I think it's damaged. A player can follow through the normal crafting process like before to try and bring its level back up to what it was, but at half the material cost, minimum of 1, and half the time, up until it reaches its previous level before it was damaged. Again, using the example of the car, you had your level 5 car that you then upgraded to level 6, but during a high-speed chase in the wastelands, your car got banged up pretty badly and was brought down to level 4. Because this is below its minimum level, it can't function until you repair it to at least level 5. Then you can start driving it around till you feel ready to repair it back to level 6. Once you've repaired it back to what it was, it then costs full time and materials again to upgrade it past this point, in this case to level 7. There we have it. The system itself is straightforward once you realize it's just a matter of going through the chart level by level at your leisure. Spend time, make a roll, spend materials, have a pint, and wait for all this to blow over. I like the way this plays out because it gives players more agency over the crafting and takes away all those all or nothing mechanics. Just because you want that level 8 car doesn't mean you have to wait and hope you roll well enough or get the materials to make that level 8 car. You could just upgrade your car from level 5 to level 6 first and drive it around the wastelands till you're ready and able to start upgrading it further. I'll be honest, I'm still fine-tuning a few things like the material costs and especially the time costs. I don't like my players having to take forever to complete tasks. Having years or even a decade go by to craft some things in Numenera just felt crazy, since it's unlikely we'll have many campaigns that will allow them to have that much time just to craft something. But at the same time, you don't want them to say, "Hey, I need this level 10 artifact. Give me a few minutes, will you?" One more rule to go along with this crafting system. If you aren't playing in a scenario where the players can just build whatever whenever, then what I do is say that tasks in this crafting system are hindered by 2 steps unless the character either has some sort of plan or schematic, or has some sort of in-game reason why they would have experience with this type of item. For example, the computer nerd of the group may not be very good at fixing that car without the mechanics manual there. Basically, it's like plans. But a character that used to run a car repair place in their backstory should be just fine, and shouldn't need any manual for the car schematics because they have experience with cars. As is generally true in any Cypher game, just do what makes sense for the story. That's my take on crafting in Cypher. It's not the official way to do things, it's just the way I like to do things. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I'm getting a few more followers each day, and I love how the channel is growing. So, as always, stay healthy, stay safe, and have a good one, eh?